my name is Nicholas Montez, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Nicholas Montez. Welcome back to another YouTube channel video, everybody. I'm so excited to have you all back here together again, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing so today, by the time we're watching this, it is July 31st, but by the time I'm filming this, it is July 30th, because I don't know if I probably won't be able to make videos tomorrow, so I thought this would be the perfect time to do it. So today I'm going to be ranking all 16 non-new release films that I saw in 2021 of July, from the worst to the best. Let's get started. So for me, this is just an awful film. Just, the story is just kind of weird. I think the best thing about it is that it kind of feels similar to, Chucky, but it's not the best version of it. And when it tries to go back into the story of how this happened, it's just so dark and so dull. And plus, likewise, the characters aren't even that interesting. There are a couple of horror scenes that I did like, but other than that, this is an awful film. This is just another awful movie of July of 2021 of non-new release films. The film just feels so awkward and corny. The performance, there are a couple of scenes that I did like that are emotional with the story and the way that the character friendships go. But other than that, the movie is just terrible. It's corny, it's cheesy, and I don't really like it that much. And I'm not watching this movie ever again. Now, besides the action sequences, let's just say, this is just not a likable film. Robin Hood doesn't really have there's no character development with these characters. All there is just these characters stealing gold and then just creating trouble. Like, that's not great character. It kind of has some Disney magic, and some cool action, but that's it. It's just a bland film. So this is basically like Robin Hood, except I think the best thing about it is that I liked how they brought back the actor that played Duchess in the Aristocats, which I really like, which is going to be a lot higher on my list. And there are some cool animation bits, and the adopted child, it almost made me tear up a little bit, because she just wants a family, and as she's talking to her bear about it, her stuffed bear about it, it just makes it so emotional, and I love that. But other than that, the movie is just so bland, and it's kind of weird how you would send mice to do the hero's job. So, other than the things like I said, this is not the best Disney animated movie so far. Now, this movie was just so mixed for me, because on one hand, some of the action sequences and setup and sets of places being destroyed, that, of course, that stuff in movies I always like. And when the people are in those big suits and they're like running across the entire town, it honestly kind of looks cool, but the CGI does look kind of bad. Some of the action is just kind of off-putting, and then the characters are just not very interesting. So this movie just takes all the bad stuff in a film and just makes it bad all around. Though the cast is kind of enjoyable with the general from A Dog's Purpose, who played I keep forgetting his name. Whatever. But this is just a bad movie. Now, this is a fun movie, but it has some issues. The idea of the Looney Tunes characters teaming up with Michael B. Jordan to play basketball just feels like the most out of the blue idea for a movie ever, because Looney Tunes aren't meant to play basketball, and Michael B. Jordan is not meant to be with them. But the idea is kind of clever. The characters are pretty fun. some of the CGI with the human characters just feels so off. And also, Michael B. Jordan does not know how to act because he's not an actor. He's a basketball player. Well, baseball player now, since he's now a baseball player. When he was talking about the backstory of him in the movie, I did like Bill Murray's cameo in this film, but everything else just feels so. But it is kind of enjoyable. Now, this movie has some really good performances by Samuel L. Jackson, James McAvoy, and what's the bald guy's name? Bruce Willis. Those three actors really have the great performance in this film. And my favorite is James McAvoy, as he can do all these different personalities, and it's very cool the way he does it. And like the themes about superheroes and people thinking that they're superheroes is kind of cool in this movie. And but to be honest with you, the story is kind of a bit mixed for me in the way of what's happening, because it just feels like a brand new idea that didn't work. And then when it ended, I don't feel any completion or anything. So this is a really good movie with solid performances, but a weird movie with its ending. Now, I really enjoyed this movie, and that's because the whole cast in the film, where they basically Peter's friends, they're all enjoyable. Emma Thompson and the guy that has HIV, I think, are two of the best characters in the film, because Emma Thompson, she wanted to get with, I believe, Kenneth Branagh's character, and she just started crying because she didn't know what to do, and she feels like there's still hope since Kenneth Branagh's character is bisexual. And also, there's this thing that this guy, that one of the guys does that has HIV. He like does this cackling noise, and it's just so funny because it makes me laugh too. And it kind of dives into the characters a little bit, but the story is just not that great. But the cast and some of the moments with the characters are pretty good. Now, this movie was just so enjoyable. Adding The Rock in it, which technically, I'm honestly kind of tired of them adding him in action movies like this. Because, I mean, I understand. He's a big world-class actor. He does a bunch of great things when he's with action stars. But when you cast him in a film like this, it basically feels like he's just copying him, Hobbs in the Fast and Furious films. But he did a good performance with, I think, Channing Tatum's character. I think that's the guy that was in the original movie. I don't know. But what I loved about this film is that it kind of makes the action, like the action sequences were a lot better, and they were a lot better choreographed. The story here was kind of cool. Adding Bruce Willis into the mix as he has this house full of guns and weapons and bombs, and like, this was just so surprising. And then, like, you also have Snake Eyes doing, like, all these, like, action sequences on this, like, cliff, and which was really cool. And they actually get some of the villains joining the good team. Now, the specific story itself never really brought my attention. The Return of Cobra just never, I don't think, really did anything right. And everybody was like, this is the proper version of how to make Cobra look. But I don't know. I don't like the way Cobra looked, and I don't like how he returned. So that's really my thoughts on G.I. Joe Retaliation. But I did really enjoy this movie more than Rise of Cobra. Now, this movie, it's just a solid movie. All right. The acting is great, and I think I haven't watched this movie since I first reviewed it, but I believe there are some action in it, and I think it is kind of good. The way Kenneth Branagh, what he's great at is doing the Shakespearean grandeur stuff, and as this was one of his first films that did that, it did a pretty good job at doing that. But the movie's just kind of boring to me, and that's kind of why I put it at number 7 for me. So I don't really have anything else to say about it. So for me, this was actually a pretty good start to the Halloween franchise, where you basically just get horror stuff with Michael Myers basically killing people and being the psychopath, and with the music added into it, it just makes for a very interesting story with characters you kind of care about, while also having this horror vibe that are just great. And like all the scenarios that happens, it's perfect for what Michael Myers does in this movie. So I thought that was great. But the movie is not that great. It kind of is a little bit weaker than the other films in the franchise. It's more focusing on the horror vibes than the actual production of the story and the characters. So even though it doesn't focus on that, I still enjoyed the film. Now this is actually a movie I haven't reviewed, because when I watched this movie, reviewed it, when I had my little review of it, I was actually sick when 4th of July was around. My throat was kind of sore, and I got a stuffy nose that week. But now I actually get to talk about it. And what are my thoughts on Independence Day? I think that it's just a fun movie. There is kind of references to Star Wars in the mix, as basically have these human characters battling alien spaceships, and the cast is great with Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum, which, to be honest with you, that is such an off pair to see these two actors interact with one another, because Will Smith is kind of like the fun, serious guy, and Jeff Goldblum is kind of like the very fun guy. And it's so weird because he's not really, like, I didn't know how they would interact with each other, but there are some kind of cool interactions there. But I kind of like this type of movie where it's basically the end of the world. Like, aliens just invaded New York. Like, the entire world of New York is destroyed. And I like how it's this big epic story. And, you know, you have Will Smith's wife in the movie helping out all these different people coming together to make a bigger alliance to help people, get people better after the attack of aliens. And overall, it was just an enjoyable, fun time, especially for 4th of July. And that speech before they go to attack, it was a great speech. I probably think that's my favorite scene of the entire film. So this was a very enjoyable movie. Now what this movie does so well is that it really just has classic moments. Every single story that we get to see in this film literally just oozes with Disney classicness. Whether it's the Winnie the Pooh stuff, or the introduction of Tigger, Eeyore stories, Rabbit stories, Pooh getting stuck inside of Rabbit's traveling space to get into his house. Like, there's all these stories that just work so well, and I love it. All the characters are delightful and charming and sweet, and it's just a sweet and delightful film. The reason why I put it at number 4 is because I just don't think the story, because it's basically a whole bunch of stories put into one, and I just don't like it. I like how they do with Christopher Robin, where they make it into one big film and like they make it a sequel. Except the whole story is made into one book. But like it doesn't continue it doesn't make new stories. It continues this story of these characters, which I like in Christopher Robin. But this film, not so much. But I still really enjoy this movie. Now, the reason why I love the Aristocats is because this movie is just so sweet. These cats are just so sweet and charming and likable, and I just love them so much. That scene with the piano and all that stuff is just so satisfying, and the song is just so sweet and stuff. And honestly, I think the best character of the entire film is probably Thomas O'Malley, as the guy that played Baloo in the Jungle Book before this movie. He just played such a great role. Phil Harris, I love you, man. You are a great Disney voice actor. I love you, man. Because he is actually dead. And then also it kind of has that thing where different animals team up together to stop something bigger. And you have Hector stealing these cats, and then the mouse friend goes to get the alley cats to help Thomas O'Malley to rescue Duchess and the cats. And I kind of like that. And then when you get to the end, like, it has like this big thing where all the cats come together, and it's just a delightful movie, and I just really enjoyed this movie. So this was actually a film that I actually watched with my family this past Sunday, and I gotta say, it was actually pretty enjoyable. The idea of time travel, like the proper flow of time travel, is actually really cool. Because you've seen films like Avengers Endgame, where in that movie the time travel stuff just did not work, and I understand it now, but before I didn't understand it at first, because like, how, if you go to the past and you change it, how will it not affect your future? Like, will Captain America not feel the scepter going to his heart? Like, that just does not make any sense. But besides that, the movies just has some fun things, and when the twist, and when the past changes, the future changes, and I kind of like that aspect of the film. And I also like the characters in the movie. There's just some classic scenes. It's also very funny. Michael J. Fox, of course, fits this young 80s kid, and honestly, he kind of reminds me of Ferris Bueller. I haven't seen that movie, like, the full thing, but I've seen what the movie is like, and Ferris Bueller is kind of like Michael J. Fox's character, and I like that. As he's not technically, he is kind of a bad guy. He technically is a bad boy, but he's also a good person. And it was kind of weird to hear Stuart Little's voice go through it. And then also, you gotta also talk about just some of the action, I guess, because when you get to the Libyans, and then you get to the kid and the past dad punching Biff in the face, that's of course fun. But overall, I really enjoyed this film. Now, the reason why I love this film so much is that it really did a bunch of things right. The way it kind of told this story of Peter Pan becoming an adult, and then he has to remember who he was back when he was actually Peter Pan. It's just such a fun idea, and casting Robin Williams as Peter Pan, adult Peter Pan, is just it's a spot on idea. And it just creates all these fun scenarios where they actually pretend food fight, or when they train to sword fight, to fight Captain Hook. Also, Dustin Hoffman as Hook. I was a little bit nervous because he doesn't really play roles like this, but he actually played the role of Hook really nicely. And all the characters are funny and sweet. And I just love this movie. The movie doesn't really focus on Hook that much. When you think about it, it's more of a Peter Pan story than an actual Captain Hook film. But besides that, this movie's an absolute blast, and I absolutely love it. So that's why it's my favorite movie of this month of non-new release films of 2021, July. So that's my ranking of all 16 films of 2021 July non-new release films. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My Instagram is Marvel6, my TikTok name is Marvel1Fan. If you guys don't understand those names, head to my back section so you can follow me on all social medias. I'm also on Letterboxd. It's the same name as Instagram, Marvel_6_, and please follow me on Letterboxd. I have new stuff on there with like movies and stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.